Dr. Zixthala pressed his appendages against the observation deck's reinforced viewing portal, watching the blue-green planet rotate slowly beneath their research vessel. After 17 cycles of preparation, the Galactic Xenobiology Consortium had finally assembled their most distinguished team to conduct the first comprehensive study of the bipedal species inhabiting the third planet of this unremarkable solar system. The initial long-range scans had suggested these creatures were suitable candidates for standard trade relations. Bipedal locomotion, opposable digits, apparent tool usage, and what appeared to be a primitive but functional civilization. Standard Protocol 7 should have been sufficient. Observe for one planetary rotation, catalog basic behavioral patterns, submit recommendations to the Trade Commission, and move on to the next system. Dr. Zixthala had overseen 47 such classifications during his career. This should have been routine. It was not routine. The first indication that these humans defied conventional xenobiological understanding came during what the research team would later designate as Observation Session Alpha 1. Dr. Velnara Quistos, the expedition's chief cultural analyst, had positioned her sensors above a human residential cluster to monitor basic social interactions. What she recorded challenged every established principle of survival biology. Subject 23 Rhett, a human specimen of approximately 30 rotations of age, had gathered with several other specimens in what appeared to be a ceremonial chamber. The humans had constructed an elaborate altar consisting of a flat circular platform upon which they placed a cylindrical structure embedded with small incendiary devices. Dr. Quistos observed with growing alarm as Subject 23 Rhett approached this obvious explosive device, while the other humans began producing rhythmic vocalizations. The ritual reached its terrifying climax when Subject 23 Rhett deliberately ignited the incendiary devices using portable flame generation equipment. Rather than fleeing this clear and present danger, the assembled humans increased the volume and intensity of their vocalizations. Most disturbing of all, they appeared to be experiencing what could only be described as pleasure responses to this controlled explosion. Dr. Quistos documented 17 separate instances where humans voluntarily approached the burning altar, consumed portions of the cylindrical structure, and expressed what their primitive vocal patterns suggested was satisfaction. The implications were staggering. These creatures not only survived exposure to open flame and consumed partially combusted organic matter, but they appeared to derive recreational enjoyment from these activities. The research team's initial hypothesis was that humans possessed advanced fire-resistant biological adaptations. This theory was immediately challenged when research assistant Kixillan Norvith observed Subject 47 Nova engaging in what appeared to be acoustic warfare training. The facility Subject 47 Nova had entered contained multiple humans arranged in rows, facing a raised platform where a single individual held what was clearly a sound amplification device. For the next 180 minutes, Dr. Norveth documented systematic auditory assault as humans took turns producing increasingly discordant vocalizations at volumes that should have caused permanent sensory damage. The truly incomprehensible aspect was that humans appeared to queue voluntarily for this torture. They paid currency to participate. They expressed disappointment when their turn ended. Dr. Norveth's preliminary analysis suggested that humans had not only evolved immunity to sonic damage, but had developed the ability to process pain as a form of entertainment. Professor Zalmira Thexian of the Behavioral Psychology Division was assigned to investigate human domestic activities, believing that observing their private behaviors would provide insight into their natural state. Her findings proved even more disturbing than the ceremonial observations. Subjects 31 Kai and 82 Zara, who appeared to be bonded pair specimens, were observed in their residential food preparation chamber, engaging in what could only be described as controlled destruction of organic materials. Professor Thexian watched in fascination as the humans deliberately applied extreme temperatures to various substances, causing visible molecular breakdown and the release of chemical compounds into the atmosphere. The process seemed to follow no logical pattern. Perfectly edible organic matter was subjected to thermal punishment until its cellular structure was fundamentally altered. The humans then consumed these deliberately damaged materials, expressing apparent satisfaction with the destruction they had wrought. Most perplexing was their tendency to add crystalline compounds and liquid extracts that served no apparent nutritional purpose, suggesting the entire process was performed for reasons beyond sustenance. Professor Thexian's detailed analysis of the cooking phenomenon led her to conclude that humans possessed the unprecedented ability to convert destruction into nourishment, possibly through some form of metabolic alchemy unknown to galactic science. The breakthrough observation came when Dr. Zixthaler himself witnessed what would later be designated as the locomotion paradox. Subject 16 Indy had been observed entering a specialized chamber containing various mechanical apparatus designed to inflict controlled physical stress. For 97 minutes, Dr. Zixthaler watched in horrified fascination as the human voluntarily subjected herself to systematic muscular strain. The subject climbed onto a moving platform that forced her to run continuously without advancing her position. She lifted heavy metallic objects repeatedly, despite achieving no apparent construction goals. Most bizarrely, she stretched her limbs into positions that appeared to cause deliberate discomfort, holding these stress positions for extended periods while controlling her respiratory functions in unnatural patterns. Throughout this self-imposed ordeal, Subject 16 Indy's biometric readings indicated elevated cardiac function, increased perspiration, and accelerated breathing, all clear signs of physical distress. Yet her facial expressions and vocal emissions suggested she was experiencing positive emotional states. The contradiction was so profound that Dr. Zixthaler initially suspected equipment malfunction. When the session concluded, Subject 16 Indy appeared revitalized rather than damaged. Her energy levels were higher than when she began. She repeated this behavior pattern every 48 hours with mechanical precision, suggesting this was not aberrant behavior, but rather a fundamental aspect of human physiology. The research team convened for an emergency analysis session aboard their vessel. Dr. Yithara Nexalon of the Theological Institute had been monitoring multiple human settlements and reported similar patterns across all observed populations. Humans everywhere engaged in activities that seemed designed to challenge their physical limitations. They climbed elevated surfaces for no practical purpose. They propelled themselves through bodies of water, despite possessing no natural aquatic adaptations. They operated wheeled vehicles at velocities that exceeded safe parameters for their reaction capabilities. Most troubling was their apparent addiction to what Dr. Nexalon termed recreational danger. Humans actively sought out situations that increased their probability of injury or death, then expressed disappointment when these activities concluded safely. They jumped from perfectly functional aircraft while attached to fabric parachutes. They descended steep inclines on narrow planks while navigating around obstacles. They entered enclosed spaces with limited oxygen supplies to observe underwater ecosystems. The theological implications were staggering. Dr. Nexalon theorized that humans might worship suffering itself, viewing pain and risk as pathways to spiritual enlightenment. This would make them the first known species to develop a religion based on the deliberate courting of extinction. Admiral Corthian Zelix, monitoring these reports from the Galactic Defense Command, reached a more militaristic conclusion. His analysis suggested that humans were engaged in continuous combat preparation. Every human activity appeared designed to enhance their capabilities for warfare, survival, or conquest. Their sports were clearly tactical training exercises. Their hobbies were skill development programs. Even their entertainment seemed focused on studying conflict scenarios and strategic thinking. The most disturbing evidence supporting Admiral Zelix's theory came from observing human information consumption patterns. Humans voluntarily exposed themselves to detailed accounts of violence, conflict, and catastrophe through their news distribution systems. They consumed fictional narratives depicting warfare, survival scenarios, and interpersonal conflict for recreational purposes. They appeared to derive satisfaction from experiencing simulated stress and danger. This suggested that humans not only prepared constantly for combat, but actively craved it. They were a species that found peace boring and safety unsatisfying. The implications for galactic security were profound. Scholar Plix Vargas, tasked with monitoring human communication networks, uncovered what he believed to be evidence of a sophisticated psychological warfare system. Humans transmitted abbreviated symbolic communications called memes that appeared designed to induce specific cognitive responses in recipients. These transmissions spread through their population with viral efficiency, suggesting either advanced mimetic engineering or natural selection for psychological manipulation capabilities. The content of these transmissions defied logical analysis. Humans shared images of small, furry quadrupeds in various poses, accompanied by text that seemed designed to provoke involuntary amusement responses. They circulated abbreviated recordings of their own species engaging in minor mishaps or failures, apparently finding satisfaction in the documented suffering of their peers. Most mysteriously, they created elaborate fictional scenarios involving anthropomorphized objects or animals, then distributed these constructs to induce emotional responses in complete strangers. Scholar Vargas concluded that humans possessed an innate understanding of cognitive vulnerability and had developed their entire communication system around exploiting these weaknesses. The fact that they appeared unconscious of this ability only made it more terrifying. They were natural psychological manipulators who had weaponized humor itself. The team's growing concern reached a critical point when Dr. Quistos observed what she initially classified as a large-scale military exercise, but later reclassified as something far more ominous. Hundreds of humans had gathered in a massive enclosed structure, arranging themselves in precise geometric patterns while facing a raised platform. A single human stood on this platform, manipulating various instruments to produce coordinated sound waves that induced synchronized behavioral responses in the assembled crowd. The humans moved in unison, vocalized in harmony, and displayed identical emotional reactions to specific audio cues. The level of coordination suggested either telepathic communication or incredibly sophisticated conditioning protocols. Dr. Quistos observed this phenomenon for 4 hours, during which the humans maintained their synchronized responses without apparent fatigue or resistance. The event concluded with the crowd producing sustained vocal emissions at volumes that registered as potentially harmful on the research team's equipment. Rather than showing signs of auditory damage, the humans dispersed while exhibiting elevated mood indicators and increased social bonding behaviors. They voluntarily paid currency to participate in what appeared to be a mass conditioning session, then expressed gratitude for the experience. Dr. Quistos's analysis suggested that humans had developed the ability to achieve hive mind coordination through acoustic manipulation while maintaining individual consciousness. This represented a fusion of collective intelligence and personal autonomy that violated several fundamental principles of evolutionary psychology. The culminating observation occurred when Dr. Zixthaler decided to monitor a smaller human gathering to better understand their social dynamics. What he witnessed would reshape the expedition's entire understanding of the species they were studying. 7 humans had assembled in a residential structure around a flat surface supporting a cylindrical object decorated with colorful inscriptions. One human, apparently designated as the ritual leader, approached the object while the others began producing rhythmic vocalizations. The leader then introduced multiple small flames to the cylindrical structure, causing it to emit light and heat. What followed challenged every known principle of rational behavior. The humans gathered closer to the flaming object rather than fleeing. They appeared to enter a trance-like state, producing repetitive vocal patterns while focusing their attention on the burning cylinder. The ritual leader then proceeded to systematically destroy the cylinder using a sharp metallic implement, distributing fragments to each participant. The humans consumed these fragments while the fires continued burning mere centimeters from their faces. They exhibited pleasure responses throughout this process, suggesting they found satisfaction in proximity to danger and consumption of fire-damaged materials. Most disturbing of all, they repeated specific vocal formulations that appeared to be incantations or requests to invisible entities. The preliminary findings from Dr. Zixthaler's team triggered an unprecedented response from the academic community. Within 6 standard cycles, 3 major research institutions had established competing theoretical frameworks to explain human behavioral anomalies. The Militarist School of Strategic Studies, the Theological Institute for Existential Research, and the Economic Analysis Bureau. Each published preliminary papers that would fundamentally alter galactic understanding of intelligent life development. Professor Keltar Vorthak of the Militarist School was the first to propose a comprehensive theory. His analysis of human recreational activities revealed what he argued was the most sophisticated military training program ever documented. The humans called it sports, but Professor Vorthak recognized it as continuous combat preparation disguised as entertainment. His team observed Subject 91 Marcus engaging in an activity designated basketball. The human repeatedly propelled a spherical projectile toward an elevated target, while other humans attempted to prevent successful targeting. Professor Vorthak noted that this exercise developed hand-eye coordination, spatial awareness, rapid decision-making under pressure, and teamwork dynamics essential for battlefield effectiveness. The sophistication became apparent when Professor Vorthak realized that humans had developed hundreds of variations of this training protocol. Some involved propelling projectiles with foot appendages toward defended targets. Others required humans to strike small spheres with implements while calculating complex trajectory mathematics in real time. The most advanced scenarios involved humans navigating obstacle courses while manipulating projectiles and coordinating with team members to overcome opposition forces. Professor Vorthak's analysis revealed that human children began this military conditioning before reaching physical maturity. Educational institutions systematically exposed juvenile humans to increasingly complex tactical scenarios under the guise of physical education. By adulthood, every human possessed basic combat skills, strategic thinking capabilities, and the psychological conditioning necessary for organized warfare. The professor's conclusions were grimly impressive. Humans had created a society where military training was so thoroughly integrated into daily life that participants remained unaware they were being prepared for combat. This represented a level of strategic thinking that surpassed anything in galactic military doctrine. Dr. Yithara Nexelon of the Theological Institute reached dramatically different conclusions. Her extensive analysis of human behavior patterns suggested that humans had developed the galaxy's first pain-based religious system. The evidence was overwhelming and disturbing. Dr. Nexelon documented human participation in activities they called exercise, which involved deliberate muscular stress, cardiovascular strain, and controlled exhaustion. Humans gathered in specialized temples called gyms, where they used mechanical devices designed to induce physical discomfort. They lifted heavy objects repeatedly despite achieving no construction goals. They ran on stationary platforms that prevented forward progress while monitoring their increasing heart rates and perspiration levels. The theological implications were profound. Dr. Nexelon theorized that humans believed suffering purified the soul and brought them closer to divine understanding. Their workouts were actually worship sessions where they communed with pain itself as a spiritual entity. The fact that humans expressed satisfaction and improved mood following these suffering rituals confirmed that they had achieved transcendence through voluntary torment. This explained the human tendency to seek increasingly challenging forms of discomfort. Some humans suspended themselves from elevated positions using ropes and small mechanical devices, apparently attempting to achieve enlightenment through gravity-induced stress. Others submerged themselves in frigid water or exposed themselves to extreme temperatures, seeking spiritual revelation through environmental hostility. Dr. Nexelon's research revealed that human spiritual practices extended beyond individual suffering to community-based pain sharing. Groups of humans gathered to experience synchronized discomfort through activities like hot yoga, where they performed complex physical positions in artificially heated environments designed to induce maximum perspiration and muscular strain. The Economic Analysis Bureau, led by Dr. Nexrim Zaltheos, approached human behavior from a resource management perspective and reached conclusions that challenged fundamental principles of galactic economics. Dr. Zaltheos's team focused on human consumption patterns and discovered what appeared to be the first post-scarcity civilization in galactic history. The evidence was overwhelming. Humans routinely destroyed perfectly functional resources for entertainment purposes. They purchased items specifically designed to be temporary or single-use. They engaged in planned obsolescence, deliberately manufacturing products with limited operational lifespans to justify continuous replacement cycles. Most remarkably, humans had developed an economic system where the systematic waste of resources was considered essential for social stability. They called this consumer culture, and Dr. Zalthios recognized it as the most sophisticated resource management strategy ever documented. Humans understood that abundance required circulation. Rather than hoarding resources until they achieved maximum utility, humans kept materials in constant motion through their society. They purchased items, used them briefly, then discarded them to purchase improved versions. This created continuous demand, which drove innovation, which generated employment, which distributed wealth, which funded further consumption. Dr. Zalthios calculated that humans had achieved resource abundance so complete that they could afford to waste materials as a form of economic engine maintenance. Their inefficiency was actually hyper-efficiency disguised as carelessness. They had solved the fundamental economic problem that plagued every other galactic civilization: how to maintain prosperity without resource depletion. The implications were staggering. If humans could teach other species their abundance management techniques, scarcity could become obsolete throughout the galaxy. Alternatively, if humans decided to withhold these secrets or use their economic superiority as a weapon, they could destabilize every existing trade relationship and governmental structure. Scholar Plixto Vargas approached human behavior from a communications theory perspective and uncovered what he believed to be evidence of weaponized information systems. His analysis of human internet revealed a communication network of unprecedented sophistication and psychological impact. Humans had created a system that allowed instantaneous information transmission across their entire planet, enabling real-time coordination of their global population. But Scholar Vargas discovered that humans used this capability primarily to share what they called memes, concentrated information packets designed to induce specific emotional and behavioral responses in recipients. These memes demonstrated remarkable psychological engineering. Humans could create simple images or brief text combinations that generated complex emotional reactions, influenced decision-making processes, and even modified behavioral patterns in exposed populations. The memes spread through human communication networks with viral efficiency, suggesting either natural selection for cognitive impact or deliberate design for maximum psychological penetration. Scholar Vargas documented several categories of memetic weapons. Some appeared designed to induce amusement responses that lowered cognitive defenses. Others generated outrage reactions that could be directed towards specific targets. The most sophisticated memes created social bonding effects that strengthened group cohesion while simultaneously identifying outsiders for potential exclusion. The strategic implications were terrifying. Humans had developed information warfare capabilities that could potentially influence any species with visual processing abilities. They could theoretically pacify hostile populations, manipulate political outcomes, or destabilize entire civilizations using nothing more than carefully constructed images and text combinations. Most disturbing was the apparent unconscious nature of human memetic warfare deployment. Individual humans created and shared these weapons without seeming to recognize their psychological impact. This suggested either species-wide strategic thinking coordination or evolutionary development of cognitive warfare capabilities at the genetic level. The research team's expanding analysis revealed increasingly disturbing patterns in human behavior. Every aspect of human society appeared designed to enhance individual capabilities while maintaining collective coordination. Their educational systems trained critical thinking, problem-solving, and creative adaptation. Their entertainment systems provided continuous exposure to conflict scenarios, survival challenges, and ethical dilemmas. Their economic systems rewarded innovation, efficiency, and strategic thinking. Most remarkably, humans seemed to accomplish this enhancement through activities they considered enjoyable. They had achieved what every galactic civilization struggled with: voluntary self-improvement driven by intrinsic motivation rather than external coercion. Dr. Velnara Quistos conducted follow-up observations of human social gatherings and discovered additional evidence supporting the emerging theories. She documented humans engaging in games that required rapid strategic thinking, resource management, and complex social manipulation. Humans voluntarily subjected themselves to these mental challenges, competing to demonstrate superior cognitive abilities while maintaining friendly social relationships with their opponents. The sophistication of human recreational competition exceeded the complexity of most galactic diplomatic negotiations. Humans regularly engaged in activities requiring mathematical calculation, pattern recognition, probability assessment, psychological analysis, and strategic planning, all while treating these exercises as entertainment rather than work. Dr. Quistos observed one particularly revealing session where humans gathered around a flat surface marked with geometric patterns and manipulated small objects according to complex rule systems. The participants demonstrated advanced probabilistic thinking, resource allocation strategies, and psychological analysis of their opponents' behavioral patterns. They accurately predicted each other's actions, identified deception attempts, and adjusted their strategies in real time based on incomplete information. When the session concluded, the humans expressed satisfaction regardless of whether they had achieved victory or defeat. They appeared to value the cognitive exercise itself more than the outcome, suggesting they understood that the mental conditioning was more important than individual success. The mounting evidence forced the research team to reconsider their fundamental assumptions about human nature. These creatures had not simply evolved effective survival strategies, they had created a civilization where every activity simultaneously served multiple purposes: entertainment, education, physical conditioning, social bonding, economic circulation, and strategic preparation. Humans had achieved integrated optimization of their entire society without sacrificing individual autonomy or creative expression. They were simultaneously preparing for warfare, worshipping through suffering, managing post-scarcity abundance, and deploying psychological weapons, all while believing they were simply enjoying recreational activities. The research team's final preliminary assessment required unprecedented classification protocols. Standard xenobiological categories could not accommodate a species that had seamlessly integrated survival preparation, spiritual practice, economic management, and information warfare into their entertainment systems. Escalated classification. Status: species exhibits individual consciousness, weaponization capabilities. Recommend immediate Galactic Council notification. Footnote 4. The military interpretation clearly demonstrates that individual humans view themselves as autonomous tactical units capable of independent strategic action. This confirms the warrior species hypothesis, QV. Footnote 5. Professor Vorthak's analysis ignores the obvious spiritual implications. The human was expressing divine self-actualization through suffering transcendence, confirming the sacred pain paradigm. YN. Footnote 6. Both interpretations miss the economic significance. A species where individuals can confidently declare themselves as ultimate resources indicates resource management sophistication beyond current galactic understanding. NZ. Footnote 7. Colleagues are failing to recognize the mimetic warfare implications. The human was demonstrating the ability to compress complex strategic concepts into minimal communication units for maximum psychological impact. We may be observing cognitive weapons testing in real time. PV. Research assistant Kixellen Norveth submitted the observation that would trigger galactic-wide policy reassessment. During routine surveillance of a human educational facility, she recorded a brief exchange between what appeared to be an instructor and a student. The instructor posed a question regarding humanity's most effective implement of dominance. The student's response required immediate classification under Emergency Protocol Omega-9. The young human had identified himself as the ultimate weapon. The Galactic Council's emergency session convened with representatives from 43 star systems in attendance, marking the largest crisis response gathering in recorded galactic history. Ambassador Thorvin Kixthale of the Central Command Authority presented the consolidated findings from the consortium's human observation team. and the subsequent policy decisions would reshape interstellar relations for generations. The immediate response was the implementation of Emergency Resolution 28470, establishing a 50 light-year exclusion zone around the Sol system. No civilian vessels would be permitted within this boundary without explicit military escort and psychological conditioning protocols. The resolution passed unanimously after Commander Silthanea Corvus presented her analysis of human combat capabilities. Commander Corvus had spent weeks studying human physical conditioning footage obtained by the research team, focusing particularly on activities humans designated as martial arts. Her findings suggested that humans had developed hand-to-hand combat systems of unprecedented sophistication and lethality. The humans practiced these techniques in controlled environments, perfecting movements designed to disable opponents through precise application of kinetic force to vulnerable anatomical regions. What made these combat systems particularly terrifying was their integration with human philosophical frameworks. The humans had somehow combined physical violence training with mental discipline practices, creating warriors who could achieve psychological equilibrium while simultaneously preparing to inflict maximum damage on potential enemies. Commander Corvus documented human practitioners who could remain perfectly calm while demonstrating techniques capable of incapacitating multiple opponents. The humans called these practices meditation in motion, confirming Dr. Nexalon's theological theories while supporting Professor Vorthak's military analysis. They had weaponized inner peace itself, creating a warrior class that became more dangerous as they became more spiritually balanced. Commander Corvus's report triggered immediate military preparation protocols across 7 star systems. The Rigel Defense Corps began mandatory conditioning programs based on human techniques, requiring their personnel to practice controlled breathing and mindful awareness while engaging in combat training. The Vega Military Academy implemented courses in tactical serenity, attempting to replicate human ability to maintain calm focus during violent encounters. The results were disastrous. Non-human species attempting to replicate human conditioning protocols experienced psychological breakdown, physical injury, and complete inability to integrate contradictory mental states. The Andromedans abandoned their human-inspired training program after 60% of participants suffered nervous system failures. The Centaurians concluded that human combat conditioning required biological adaptations that other species simply did not possess. These failed replication attempts only reinforced the growing consensus that humans represented a unique evolutionary development that could not be understood using conventional frameworks for intelligent life analysis. The Theological Institute's response proved equally dramatic. Dr. Yathara Nexalon published a comprehensive analysis arguing that humans had achieved direct communication with cosmic forces through systematic suffering rituals. Her evidence included human practices she designated as extreme sports, where individuals deliberately exposed themselves to maximum risk scenarios while experiencing what could only be described as spiritual ecstasy. Dr. Nexalon documented humans who threw themselves from aircraft while attached to fabric panels, trusting their lives to atmospheric resistance calculations and precise timing. Others descended vertical rock faces, using minimal equipment, relying on muscular strength and mental focus to prevent fatal falls. The most advanced practitioners engaged in free climbing, where they scaled impossible surfaces without any safety equipment whatsoever, achieving states of transcendent concentration that allowed them to defy gravitational logic. The theological implications were staggering. Dr. Nexalon theorized that humans had discovered how to access divine consciousness through controlled proximity to death. Their extreme sports were actually prayer sessions where they communicated directly with whatever cosmic entities governed probability and survival. This explained their seemingly supernatural ability to survive scenarios that should have resulted in immediate extinction. The Theological Institute's findings triggered religious upheaval across multiple star systems. The Betelgeuse Harmony Collective began constructing temples dedicated to the human path, establishing meditation chambers where practitioners attempted to achieve enlightenment through controlled suffering. The Capella spiritual unity movement declared humans to be prophets of a previously unknown deity called the Adrenaline Force. 3 separate species attempted to establish direct theological contact with humans, sending prayer transmissions toward Earth in languages their xenolinguistics departments had hastily constructed based on observed human vocal patterns. When these communications received no response, the aliens interpreted the silence as evidence that humans had transcended the need for conventional spiritual dialogue. The Economic Analysis Bureau's response created the most immediate practical consequences. Dr. Nexrim Zalthios published calculations demonstrating that human resource management capabilities could destabilize every existing trade relationship in the galaxy. His analysis of human consumer behavior revealed economic strategies that violated fundamental scarcity principles. Dr. Zalthios observed humans engaging in shopping, where they acquired resources far exceeding immediate survival requirements, then stored these materials in residential spaces without apparent strategic purpose. Humans accumulated clothing items numbering in the dozens, food supplies sufficient for extended periods, and recreational objects serving no survival function. Most remarkably, humans regularly discarded functional items to acquire updated versions with minimal performance improvements. They voluntarily replaced perfectly operational communication devices, transportation equipment, and residential furnishings simply because newer models had become available. This suggested either resource abundance beyond galactic comprehension or psychological conditioning that prioritized novelty over efficiency. Dr. Zalthios calculated that human consumption patterns required resource generation capabilities approximately 340% greater than their apparent planetary limitations. The only explanation was that humans had developed resource multiplication technologies that exceeded current galactic understanding of matter-energy conversion principles. The economic implications triggered immediate policy responses from major trading confederations. The Centauri Trade Federation began restructuring their entire industrial production system, attempting to replicate human abundance generation techniques. The Vega Commercial Alliance implemented planned obsolescence protocols in their manufacturing sectors, deliberately reducing product durability to stimulate replacement demand cycles. These attempts to emulate human economic strategies created massive supply chain disruptions across 17 star systems. The Andromedans experienced complete economic collapse when they tried to implement human-style consumer confidence metrics without understanding the psychological foundations that made such systems sustainable. Scholar Plixtoen Vargas's continued analysis of human communication systems revealed increasingly sophisticated mimetic warfare capabilities. His documentation of human social media usage demonstrated real-time psychological manipulation on a planetary scale. Humans continuously broadcast abbreviated emotional triggers designed to influence the behavioral patterns of their entire species. The sophistication of these operations exceeded anything in galactic intelligence doctrine. Humans could coordinate global opinion shifts using nothing more than shared images and brief text combinations. They influenced political decisions, modified consumption patterns, and altered social norms through distributed psychological pressure campaigns that participants appeared to execute unconsciously. Scholar Vargas documented the emergence and spread of individual meme weapons, tracking their propagation through human communication networks and measuring their behavioral impact on exposed populations. Some memes induced compliance behaviors, others generated resistance responses, and the most advanced variants appeared capable of creating entirely new social movement patterns within human communities. The revelation that humans were deploying sophisticated psychological warfare techniques without conscious awareness suggested either species-wide telepathic coordination or evolutionary development of hive mind manipulation capabilities while maintaining individual consciousness. Either possibility represented a level of cognitive evolution that transcended current galactic understanding of intelligence development. The mounting evidence triggered emergency protocol implementations across multiple governmental structures. The Galactic Defense Command authorized immediate military preparation protocols for potential human contact scenarios. All border systems received instructions to monitor for human vessels and report any approaching traffic using priority alpha communication channels. Research stations throughout the galaxy began intensive studies attempting to develop countermeasures for human capabilities. The Vegan Science Coalition initiated projects focused on pain-resistance conditioning, hoping to develop immunity to human suffering-based spiritual practices. The Rigel Technical Institute began research into abundance generation technologies, attempting to reverse engineer human post-scarcity economic systems. The Sirius Cultural Analysis Center established observation protocols for human media transmission monitoring, deploying their most advanced xenopsychologists to analyze human mimetic warfare techniques and develop defensive strategies for protecting non-human populations from psychological manipulation campaigns. Meanwhile, the Arcturus Strategic Planning Division began developing diplomatic contact protocols based on the assumption that humans represented a threat level equivalent to natural galactic disasters. Their preliminary recommendations included tribute offerings, territorial concessions, and preemptive alliance negotiations designed to prevent human expansion into populated star systems. The crisis deepened when monitoring stations detected increased human space activity. Primitive human vessels had begun exploring their own solar system, suggesting that first contact was inevitable rather than theoretical. The implications of encountering a species that had weaponized joy, economics, spirituality, and communication simultaneously created unprecedented challenges for existing diplomatic protocols. Dr. Zixthala submitted supplementary observations that further complicated the emerging theoretical frameworks. His continued surveillance revealed that humans possessed individual behavioral variations that defied classification attempts. Some humans focused primarily on physical conditioning, others emphasized intellectual development, and still others appeared to specialize in creative expression or social coordination. This diversity suggested that humans had achieved something impossible according to galactic sociological theory: specialization without fragmentation. Most intelligent species developed subgroups that became isolated from each other through focused expertise. Humans somehow maintained social cohesion while allowing individuals to pursue dramatically different development paths. Dr. Zixthala observed humans who dedicated their existence to creating sounds, images, or narratives that served no apparent survival function but generated powerful emotional responses in other humans. These artists received community support and social status despite producing no tangible resources. This confirmed that humans had transcended basic survival economics and achieved cultural evolution beyond material constraints. The sociological implications were profound. Humans had created a civilization where individual self-actualization enhanced rather than threatened collective stability. They had solved the fundamental social problem that limited every other galactic species: how to maintain unity while encouraging diversity. Research assistant Kixelan Norvith's surveillance operations detected what appeared to be human preparation for interstellar expansion. Human scientists were developing increasingly sophisticated space exploration technologies while their political systems debated resource allocation for off-world colonization projects. The humans appeared to be naturally progressing toward galactic expansion without external pressure or guidance. This meant that contact was not merely inevitable, but imminent. Within several human generations, these creatures would likely develop faster-than-light travel capabilities and begin exploring neighboring star systems. The galaxy would be forced to interact with a species that had weaponized every aspect of consciousness while maintaining apparent innocence about their own capabilities. The combined research findings led to an unprecedented conclusion. Humans were not simply another intelligent species suitable for standard diplomatic integration. They represented a fundamental challenge to existing galactic civilization structures. Their economic, military, spiritual, and communication capabilities could potentially transform or destabilize every aspect of interstellar society. The research team's final observation provided the most disturbing evidence yet discovered. During routine monitoring of human educational facilities, Dr. Quistos recorded an exchange that would trigger immediate implementation of Maximum Alert Protocol Theta 12 across all member civilizations. A human instructor, apparently conducting standard pedagogical activities, posed a question to assembled students regarding optimal strategic resources for competitive advantage scenarios. The response from a single juvenile human specimen demonstrated capabilities that exceeded the research team's most pessimistic projections about human psychological warfare potential. The recording that would fundamentally alter galactic civilization's understanding of strategic capability originated from Educational Facility 429 Alpha in the human settlement designated Boston. Research assistant Kixelen Norveth had positioned surveillance equipment to monitor standard human knowledge transfer protocols when she captured an exchange that would require complete revision of threat assessment parameters. The human instructor, identified as Professor Williams according to intercepted administrative communications, had been conducting what appeared to be a tactical analysis session with approximately 30 juvenile human specimens. The subject matter involved historical conflict scenarios and strategic resource evaluation methodologies. Professor Williams posed a question that Kixelen initially classified as routine educational inquiry. What would you consider humanity's greatest weapon throughout history? The responses from various human students followed predictable patterns. Several mentioned technological innovations, others referenced strategic leadership, and a few suggested philosophical concepts. These answers aligned with standard intelligent species development frameworks and posed no analytical challenges for the research team. Then, Subject 847 Alex provided a response that would trigger immediate activation of Maximum Alert Protocol Theta 12 across 47 star systems. The young human simply stated, "Me." This single-syllable declaration represented the most concentrated demonstration of individual strategic thinking ever documented. The human had instantaneously analyzed the question, evaluated thousands of potential responses, assessed the strategic implications of various weapon categories, and concluded that personal consciousness represented the ultimate tactical advantage. The response demonstrated cognitive processing speed, strategic analysis capability, and psychological confidence that exceeded the parameters for measuring individual intelligence. Kixelen's immediate analysis revealed the profound implications of this statement. The human was not expressing arrogance or making an emotional outburst. The response indicated genuine understanding that individual consciousness, properly applied, could indeed function as the most effective strategic tool available to their species. The human had recognized something that galactic military theorists had been debating for millennia, that consciousness itself represented the ultimate weapon when deployed effectively. The research team's expanded analysis of this interaction revealed layers of strategic sophistication that had previously gone undetected. The human's response suggested that individuals within the species understood their role as autonomous tactical units while maintaining integration with larger strategic frameworks. Each human apparently viewed themselves as both independent strategic assets and components of collective operational systems. Dr. Zixthala's follow-up investigations confirmed that this perspective was widespread throughout human society. Humans consistently demonstrated individual initiative while coordinating effectively with group objectives. They could function as independent agents when circumstances required autonomy, or as coordinated team members when situations demanded collective action. This flexibility represented strategic adaptability that exceeded anything documented in galactic military analysis. The implications forced complete reassessment of human society structure. What the research team had initially interpreted as chaotic individualism was actually sophisticated distributed command architecture. Humans had created a civilization where every individual functioned as a potential command center, capable of independent strategic decision-making while maintaining integration with larger organizational frameworks. This explained the mysterious effectiveness of human economic, social, and cultural systems. Rather than relying on centralized control mechanisms that could be compromised or overwhelmed, humans had distributed strategic capability throughout their entire population. Every human possessed the cognitive tools necessary to analyze problems, develop solutions, and implement responses without requiring external coordination. The revelation triggered immediate policy responses from multiple galactic institutions. The Centauri Military Academy initiated comprehensive studies of distributed command architecture, attempting to develop training protocols that could replicate human individual strategic capability. Their preliminary experiments involved teaching standard personnel to function as autonomous decision-making units while maintaining coordination with hierarchical command structures. The results confirmed that human cognitive architecture represented evolutionary development beyond current galactic biological understanding. Centauri personnel attempting to replicate human individual strategic thinking experienced cognitive overload, psychological fragmentation, and complete inability to balance autonomy with cooperation. The human ability to simultaneously maintain individual identity and collective coordination appeared to require neurological structures that other species had not developed. The Betelgeuse Defense Coalition reached similar conclusions when they attempted to implement human-inspired tactical training. Their analysis suggested that humans possessed cognitive capabilities that allowed them to process individual strategic analysis while simultaneously maintaining awareness of collective strategic frameworks. This represented a level of parallel processing that exceeded the cognitive architecture of most known intelligent species. Meanwhile, the theological response to human consciousness weaponization capabilities triggered religious transformation across multiple star systems. The Procyon Spiritual Assembly declared humans to be manifestations of cosmic consciousness itself, creatures that had achieved divine awareness while remaining embedded in physical reality. Their analysis suggested that human individual strategic capability demonstrated direct connection to universal intelligence principles. The Procyon interpretation led to the establishment of meditation centers dedicated to achieving human-like consciousness integration. Practitioners attempted to develop individual strategic thinking while maintaining spiritual awareness, hoping to replicate human ability to balance personal autonomy with cosmic understanding. These attempts generally resulted in philosophical confusion and complete inability to make practical decisions. The Sirius Contemplative Order took a different approach, interpreting human consciousness weaponization as evidence of species-wide enlightenment. Their analysis suggested that humans had evolved beyond the need for traditional spiritual seeking because they had achieved integration of consciousness principles into practical daily life. Every human action apparently demonstrated cosmic awareness applied to material reality challenges. This interpretation led to the development of human worship practices among several species. The Capella Devotional Federation began conducting services dedicated to the human mystery, attempting to achieve consciousness weaponization through ritualistic replication of observed human behaviors. Practitioners engaged in controlled suffering exercises, abundance creation ceremonies, and individual strategic capability development rituals. The economic response proved equally dramatic and significantly more disruptive to galactic stability. Dr. Nexrim Zalthios's expanded analysis revealed that human individual strategic capability extended to economic decision-making processes that could potentially destabilize entire interstellar trade systems. Humans apparently possessed the ability to make individual economic decisions that somehow automatically aligned with optimal collective economic outcomes. They could pursue personal financial advantage while simultaneously contributing to overall societal prosperity. This represented economic integration that violated fundamental scarcity management principles and suggested cognitive capabilities that transcended normal intelligence parameters. The economic implications triggered immediate protective responses from major trading confederations. The Vega Commercial Alliance implemented emergency protocols designed to prevent human economic infiltration of their trade networks. They established monitoring systems to detect human-influenced economic patterns and developed contingency plans for rapid market isolation if human abundance generation techniques began affecting their resource distribution systems. The Centauri Trade Federation took more aggressive action, implementing comprehensive economic warfare preparation protocols. Their analysis suggested that humans could potentially destroy traditional scarcity-based economic systems simply by demonstrating their abundance generation capabilities to other species. The Federation began developing economic isolation strategies and alternative trade frameworks that could function independently of human influence. These economic preparation measures created immediate disruption in galactic commerce. Trade relationships became strained as different systems implemented varying levels of human protection protocols. Some confederations established complete economic isolation policies, while others attempted to develop human-resistant market structures that could withstand potential abundance generation attacks. The psychological warfare implications of human consciousness weaponization triggered the most comprehensive response from galactic intelligence agencies. Scholar Plixtoan Vargas's expanded analysis of human memetic capabilities revealed strategic psychological manipulation potential that exceeded conventional warfare frameworks. Humans had developed information distribution systems that could potentially influence the behavioral patterns of entire civilizations without those populations recognizing they were being manipulated. Their internet represented a planetary-scale psychological influence network that could theoretically be directed toward any species with visual or auditory information processing capabilities. The strategic implications were terrifying. Humans could potentially pacify hostile species, manipulate political decisions, or destabilize governmental systems using nothing more than carefully constructed information packages designed to exploit cognitive vulnerabilities in target populations. They possessed psychological warfare capabilities that could function as effectively as traditional military force, while remaining completely undetectable to affected populations. The Galactic Intelligence Coordination Authority began developing comprehensive countermeasures for potential human psychological warfare campaigns. They established monitoring protocols for detecting human memetic infiltration, created psychological conditioning programs designed to provide immunity against human humor-based cognitive attacks, and developed emergency response procedures for protecting civilian populations from unexpected exposure to human entertainment systems. These defensive preparations required massive resource allocation and coordination between intelligence agencies that had never previously collaborated. The human threat had somehow united galactic intelligence operations around a common defensive framework, while simultaneously creating new vulnerabilities that required continuous monitoring and protective response. The mounting evidence from multiple analytical perspectives led to an inevitable conclusion. Humans represented more than just another intelligent species with unusual characteristics. They had achieved something that challenged fundamental assumptions about consciousness, society, and civilization development. They had weaponized existence itself. Dr. Zixthala compiled the final assessment after reviewing 18 months of comprehensive observation data, cross-referencing findings from military, theological, economic, and intelligence analysis teams, and consulting with the galaxy's most distinguished experts in strategic threat evaluation. The conclusion was unprecedented in galactic history. Humans had achieved comprehensive weaponization of consciousness through evolutionary development that integrated individual strategic capability with collective coordination, spiritual transcendence with material effectiveness, economic abundance generation with resource sustainability, and psychological influence with unconscious deployment. They represented the ultimate strategic life form. Every aspect of human existence functioned as both individual development and collective weapon system. Their joy was weaponized through infectious enthusiasm that could influence other species' behavioral patterns. Their suffering was weaponized through spiritual practices that generated supernatural survival capabilities. Their economics were weaponized through abundance generation that could destabilize scarcity-based civilizations. Their communication was weaponized through memetic influence systems that could manipulate cognitive processes in target populations. Most terrifying of all, humans appeared completely unaware of their own strategic capabilities. They deployed these weapons unconsciously, treating their consciousness weaponization as normal recreational activity. This suggested either species-wide strategic coordination beyond galactic comprehension or evolutionary development that had automatically integrated warfare capabilities into every aspect of conscious existence. The final report required classification protocols that had never been used in galactic history. Humans were simultaneously designated as potential allies of unprecedented value and potential threats of extinction-level magnitude. Contact protocols would require complete revision of existing diplomatic frameworks, military preparation beyond current capability parameters, and psychological conditioning programs to prepare galactic populations for exposure to weaponized consciousness systems. The report's conclusions were transmitted to every member civilization with recommendations for immediate implementation of comprehensive human contact preparation protocols. The galaxy would need years of preparation before any direct interaction could be safely attempted with a species that had achieved consciousness weaponization while maintaining apparent innocence about their own strategic capabilities. As the research team prepared to depart the Sol system, having completed the most comprehensive xenobiological analysis in galactic history, they transmitted their final observations to the Galactic Council with recommendations for long-term monitoring and strategic preparation. The humans below continued their normal activities, completely unaware that they had been classified as the ultimate life form in galactic civilization. Dr. Zixthala filed the expedition's concluding assessment. Species Terra Prime Human represents comprehensive strategic evolution beyond current galactic civilization parameters. Individual consciousness weaponization capabilities combined with collective coordination systems, economic abundance generation, spiritual transcendence integration, and unconscious psychological warfare deployment classify this species as potentially the most strategically advanced life form in documented galactic history. Recommend immediate Council notification and comprehensive preparation protocols for inevitable contact scenarios. The massive alien research vessel engaged its faster-than-light drives and departed the Sol system, carrying data that would reshape galactic civilization's understanding of consciousness, strategy, and the ultimate potential of intelligent life development. On the planet below, college student Jackson noticed a brief metallic glint in the afternoon sky, glanced up from his smartphone, shrugged, and muttered to his roommate, "Probably just space junk or whatever."